lay low, G, 'cause it's a heavy-ass charge, that if you get caught, bro.
Yeah, bro, if I get nicked on this, bro, all the taxis are gonna come up, man. Bro, I'll get about 10 years, bro. Bro, just delete all these taxis. I'll speak to you when I see you in person, bro.
It started small. A few heated words, teenage pride flaring like it always does. Nothing unusual, just a minor argument that should have burned out as fast as it sparked. But pride doesn't just fade, it lingers. And then someone pulled a knife. What should have been a forgettable fight turned into something darker. And when the wrong people shared the wrong information and locations got passed around, things went from tense to deadly. It's mid-2020. Two teenagers, 18-year-old Jamie Dixon and 16-year-old Sarmad Al-Saidi, once friendly, are now locked in a bitter feud sparked by a petty argument. They'd known each other for years, but something shifted, and one day, things turned violent. A fight broke out, and in the chaos, Sarmad pulled a knife. He slashed Jamie across the left wrist, leaving a deep, serious wound before fleeing the scene. For some, that might have been the end of it. But for Jamie Dixon, it was just the beginning. Well known to the police, but never one to call them, Jamie made one thing clear. He wasn't going to let this go. He would settle it himself, no matter what it took. Months had passed since the fight, but Jamie hadn't moved on, not even close. The wound on his wrist had started to heal, but the need for revenge stayed raw. He'd been waiting, watching, planning, gathering weapons and pulling people in. Sarmad knew it wasn't over either. Word travels fast, and so does fear. He'd heard the threats. He knew Jamie was coming, so he armed himself with a large knife and made a habit of keeping it close. Then came the opportunity Jamie had been waiting for. 17-year-old Asad Hussein, a low-level drug dealer and mutual friend of both Jamie and Sarmad, reached out. In their conversation, Sarmad's name came up. Both Jamie and Asad had their own reasons to be upset with him. Asad had fronted Sarmad £25 worth of cannabis weeks earlier, money that still hadn't been paid. Tensions were rising, but nothing had turned serious yet. It was the kind of low-level dispute that might have fizzled out on its own. But Jamie saw something else, an opening. He floated an idea. Asad would arrange a meetup with Sarmad under the pretense of sorting out the debt. While they talked, Jamie would be lying in wait, ready to strike. It was bold, risky and bizarre, but surprisingly over just £25, Asad didn't hesitate. He agreed, and just like that, the plan was set in motion. It was 2 days before Christmas. Sarmad was on his way to a friend's house, invited over to play PlayStation, nothing more. It seemed like a normal afternoon, but what he didn't know as he approached that door was that he'd never walk back out again. Earlier that day, he and Asad had spoken about the lingering £25 debt. Sarmad agreed to meet up, maybe even settle it. He mentioned he'd be at his friend's place and told Asad to come by later to talk. That was all Asad needed. Quietly, he passed the location straight to Jamie. The trap was set. Jamie, alongside his close friend, 16-year-old Lamar Forbes, got ready. They both each grabbed a weapon and set off toward the address. At around 5:20 p.m., Jamie and Lamar arrived. Sarmad had already been at the house for about 2 hours. Outside, they waited. CCTV footage later showed them pacing, dressed in dark clothing, armed with large knives they kept drawing and resheathing. They moved back and forth between the driveway and the house next door, restless and watching. It looked like they were waiting for Sarmad to come outside, but time dragged on. He never did. Then, just as planned, Asad Hussein arrived. He was armed too. Sarmad was expecting him. Believing they were there to settle the debt, Asad was welcomed in. He then moved through the house and into the conservatory where Sarmad and his friends were hanging out. But almost immediately, Asad started acting strange, jittery, on edge. He knew Sarmad was likely armed, and so did Jamie. The plan had shifted slightly. Asad's first move was to disarm him. It didn't take long. With smooth words, he convinced Sarmad to set his knife aside. Confusion flickered across Sarmad's face, but he hadn't yet grasped that this was part of a setup. By the time he did, it was too late. Asad had already given the signal. Jamie and Lamar burst into the house. What followed was a frenzied, brutal attack. Armed with machetes and hunting knives, they launched at Sarmad, stabbing him again and again, chest, legs, 12 times in total. Jamie and Lamar fled the house, leaving chaos in their wake. Inside, panic erupted. The homeowner and Sarmad's friends, still in shock from what they'd just witnessed, scrambled to call for help. Emergency calls poured in, voices trembling, describing the brutal stabbing that had just unfolded before their eyes.
You go and taking the next right by that ice and medical centre.
Police and paramedics raced to the scene. Sirens cut through the quiet December evening as first responders rushed to try and save Sarmad's life.
Right here.
We're gonna be fine, Sarmad. And the police are here.
When paramedics arrived, right there in the house, medics performed emergency surgery, opening his chest on the floor in a desperate attempt to restart his heart. One of them began manually massaging it, trying to force it to keep beating. As paramedics fought to save Sarmad's life, police wasted no time. Officers began questioning everyone still at the scene. Among them was Asad Hussein. He hadn't run. He stayed behind, blending into the chaos.
Right, so they're all playing on the PlayStation, and these two lads have run in.
They've just walked in.
Did it happen here?
Yeah, it happened in there where that blood is.
Right, okay.
The two lads who ran through.
Right.
They've gone directly to him. There's been lots of other people pushing and shoving,
Yeah.
but they wanted him.
Right, and it's happened just there at the back.
Just there.
What, inside or outside?
No, inside. They were all playing on the PlayStation.
Right.
There were nothing, no aggro, no talking, no
Right.
nothing. We were talking about bringing dinner, balaclava on. I would say he was, I'm 5'5". I would say he's about 6'9", 5'11", 5'10".
Sarmad still hadn't regained consciousness. In critical condition, he was rushed into intensive care, machines keeping him alive while doctors fought to undo the damage. Meanwhile, just half a mile away from the crime scene, Jamie Dixon and Lamar Forbes regrouped at a nearby property. Jamie stripped off his clothing and set them ablaze, unaware that cameras would later capture him barefoot in the street. Yet even in the wake of their brutal attack, they couldn't help but reveal in what they'd done. Lamar Forbes wasted no time. He recorded a video on his phone, waving a bloodied hunting knife still coated in tissue. On camera, he boasted, "I stabbed Sarmad up with this. Look, his flesh is there." And even that wasn't the end of it.
No one even knew apart from me and my boy, yeah, but not now. I was spreading it half a way around Preston, bro. Done this, done that, bro. Come on, man. Calm down, man. The guy's preaching over getting stabbed on that.
No one is gassing because no one actually gives, bro.
See, I'm minding me, bro. My clothes have been burnt, bro. But I don't know what they're gonna say to me, you know what I mean?
Just lay low, G, 'cause it's a heavy ass charge that if you get caught, bro.
Yeah, bro, if I get nicked on this, bro, all the taxis are gonna come up, man. Bro, I'll get about 10 year, bro. Bro, just delete all these taxis. I'll speak to you when I see you in person, bro.
My man's hurt, bro. You know what I mean? I know you didn't mean for it to happen, but like, when you made that decision in anger, bro, telling them, just come back, bro. Just come back on all of it's hard, man.
But I mean, I keep on thinking about it. I'm playing in my head, bro. Thinking I'm a murderer, bro, you know what I mean?
That night, Jamie and Lamar were still talking. They sent voice messages over Snapchat, revealing exactly what they had done. But what they didn't realize, or perhaps didn't care about in the heat of their pride, was that digital footprints don't burn as easily as clothes. The very messages they sent that night would soon come back to haunt them. Evidence in their own voices. The day after the attack, Sarmad's condition remained critical. He was still unconscious, his life sustained only by intensive care machines. Meanwhile, detectives faced a frustrating reality. They had no suspects, no names, no leads. With pressure mounting and time slipping away, police issued a public appeal, asking anyone with information to come forward. It didn't take long. 2 names came in anonymously, Jamie Dixon and Lamar Forbes. Investigators moved fast. A background check revealed that all 3 boys, Sarmad, Jamie and Lamar, had once attended the same school. Jamie and Lamar were both already familiar faces to the police. Now they weren't just names, they were suspects. With that, arrest warrants were authorized. The manhunt was on. Lamar Forbes was the first to be found. Police tracked him down quickly and took him into custody without incident. But Jamie Dixon was nowhere to be seen. He'd vanished, and for a brief moment, it looked like he might try to run. Then, unexpectedly, everything shifted. Later that same day, Jamie walked into a police station and handed himself in.
I've got Jamie Dixon outside the police station.
What am I arrested for?
I'm going to tell you in a second, mate. You're under arrest on suspicion of attempted murder. Don't harm the facts, don't mention when questioned anything straight to out in court.
That's not a small child, isn't it?
With both Jamie and Lamar now in custody, the investigation shifted into high gear. Detectives began piecing together their movements on the day of the attack, using CCTV, mobile data, and call records to map out every step. Surveillance footage revealed a key stop, a nearby convenience store. Just before the stabbing, both teens had walked in. Lamar, casually unaware of the eyes that would later be watching, even pulled down his mask to buy 2 energy drinks, clearly exposing his face to the camera. It was a quiet but damning moment. But the real breakthrough came from a camera from the scene of the attack, positioned on the neighboring house. Investigators studied the footage closely, and then they saw it. Asad Hussein, approaching the property. As he did, he turned his head and looked directly at Jamie and Lamar, who were waiting outside with their weapons in hand. No words were exchanged, but the glance was unmistakable, a silent nod, acknowledgement. The suspicion deepened. Police pulled the phone records, and there it was, a call between Asad and Lamar, made just seconds before the attack. This was no coincidence. With that, everything changed. Asad Hussein was no longer just a witness, he was now a suspect.
At this time, you're under arrest on suspicion of conspiracy to commit murder. You do not have to say anything, but it may harm your defence if you do not mention when questioned, something you later rely on in court.
With all 3 teenagers now in custody, police moved swiftly to question them. During interview, both Jamie and Lamar tried to deny any involvement. They claimed they'd been at home when the attack happened. But the evidence told a very different story. CCTV footage, phone records, witness accounts, voice notes, Snapchat messages, even a video of the bloodied knife. It all painted a damning picture. Their alibis collapsed under the weight of it. All 3 were formally charged with their roles in the attack. And with the staggering amount of evidence, none were granted bail. Then, the investigation took a devastating turn. On the 27th of December, 4 days after the attack, Sarmad Al-Saidi succumbed to his injuries. Despite the best efforts of medical teams, he couldn't be saved. He was just 16 years old. What had started as a planned act of revenge was now a murder investigation, and in court, the weight of the evidence was undeniable. Lamar Forbes admitted guilt. He pleaded guilty to murder and was sentenced to life in prison, with a minimum term of 15 years. Jamie Dixon, however, pleaded not guilty. He tried to distance himself from the killing, but the jury saw through it. He was found guilty of murder and handed a life sentence with a minimum term of 19 years. Asad Hussein also pleaded not guilty to murder, but the evidence of his involvement was clear. The jury found him guilty of conspiracy to commit grievous bodily harm. He was sentenced to 5 years in prison. Sarmad's death was a tragic reminder of how quickly teenage disputes can spiral into deadly violence. What began as a minor feud and a £25 debt ended with a life lost, futures destroyed, and families shattered.